Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. Okay, so this is another part of our chapter, and this chapter will be focusing on the epidemiology only. So epidemiology is the study on the infectious disease, and we know that the infectious disease is caused by the entry and also the reproduction of any of the infectious agent in a body. Okay, so the body can be a body of an animal, a human. Okay, so usually these two species, the body of animal and human, are the vector for the infectious agent. And in this slide, it gives an example of two infectious agents, which are the bacteria or the virus, because these two infectious agents are the most common, the most established infectious agent that we have known throughout the history for all the infectious disease. However, besides the bacteria and also virus, there are also other infectious disease agents as listed in this slide, which are, it can be from fungi, from protozoa, from helminths, and also from the prions. Okay, so remember, bacteria and virus, they are the most common agent for the infectious disease, but besides them, there are other agents as well, but okay, so let's have a look at the history. Okay, so I know that we are now in the pandemic of the COVID-19, the coronavirus disease, but let's have a look at the history of the infectious disease that once happened in our world. Okay, so maybe in between 1918 to 1919, we were not born yet. Okay, so maybe our parents, our grandparents yang ada ketika tu, but so you can ask them how the government at that time handled the situation of the influenza outbreak, and we can ask as well if the influenza did occur in our country of Malaysia and also Indonesia. Okay, so influenza outbreak, it occurred in 1918 to 1919, and it is the year of the death and devastation. So by that time, it was declared as the deadliest disease in the modern history. So they say that the person who died from the influenza outbreak are more than the one died from the World War I. Okay, so can you just imagine the 25% of the US population at that time, they became sick of the influenza outbreak. So 1/4 of the population, and we know that the US population is really large. Yeah, so 675,000 Americans died during the pandemic. Yeah? So 25% they got sick, and from that 675,000 Americans, they died during the pandemic. Can you just imagine? So all age groups were affected, not just the young and elderly. Okay, so we can see the resemblance, the similarities between the influenza outbreak and also the COVID-19 disease that we are experiencing right now. So the spread of the disease, it was first observed in the Europe, the US, and also the parts of Asia. Okay, so this is kind of different than the COVID-19 because it was first observed in China. Then it made its way through the rest of the world. So the disease of influenza, they spread quickly due to worldwide travel of troops returning from World War I. So can you imagine, from the World War I tu kan ada banyak troops, ada banyak askar-askar kan, and they go back to their hometown, and their hometown is not just in America sahaja, in Europe sahaja, so dia banyak merata-rata sehingga ke Asia. So that is how the spread of the disease is through the returning of the troops from the World War I. The cause of death for the influenza outbreak, so these are the causes. So the extensive hemorrhaging in the lungs, okay, pendarahan di dalam lung mereka. Patients literally drown in fluids because this is a flu virus. In many victims, the influenza virus had invaded their lungs and caused pneumonia. Okay, let's have a look at how they manage, how they prevent the spread of the influenza outbreak at that time. Okay, so we have to remember that was in 1918, 1919, and if we can see whether we act differently or we act similarly in the year of 2019, 2020 and 2021. Okay, so in that time, for the influenza outbreak, what they did was they quarantined the infected individuals, and they have a policy that is a mandatory use of face masks by all individuals when out in public. Okay, so far the prevention methods in the year of 1918 and in the year of 2020 and 2021, they are still the same. Okay, so we still quarantine the COVID-19 positive patients, and for all others, to prevent them from spreading the virus, we ask them to wear the mask. So these are the few infographic poster, public service announcements on the importance of the prevention. Okay, so it's the same with what we are experiencing now. So we can see a lot of posters, a lot of advertisements in our social media, in our TV. This is to educate the people so that we can stop the spread of the disease. So this is as well the same. How are the diseases spread? Okay, so this is not just for the influenza, or this is not just for the COVID-19, but this is in general on how the infectious disease spread. So it can be from person to person. Okay, so usually from person to person, there will be a lot higher potential for that infectious disease to become epidemic and also pandemic. Okay, so it's the same with COVID-19 lah, or the flu, colds, measles and so forth yang listed in the slide. From animal to person. Okay, so this is what we call the zoonotic disease. So whenever we say it's a zoonotic disease, it means that it originates from the animal and it is transferred to the person. Besides that, it can be spread through contaminated food, soil, water or other materials. So if that food is consumed by the animals or consumed by the human, okay, so it can be spread through this means as well. And also by the disease factors. Okay, so we know that the mosquitoes, fleas, ticks, they are great vectors to carry disease. Okay, so for example mosquitoes kan, so mosquitoes tu Zika virus boleh masuk dekat mosquitoes, dengue kan. So when they carry that virus and then dia datang kepada manusia, then they will transmit the virus to the human, then we will be infected and it will be spread. So how are people infected? So people will be infected when the people is in contact with the infected body fluids. Okay, so for example, mucus from a cough or sneeze, blood or feces. So that's why if you want to prevent the infectious disease, we have to take several prevention methods. Kan? Wearing mask. If you want to sneeze or if you want to cough and then cough dekat baju you sendiri sahaja, move away from other people because it can be transmitted through air, and that leads to the second point, which is people can be infected by the water, by the air or the foodborne infectious agent. Because for example for the foodborne kan, that's what we consume, so it will be directly taken into our body. So that is how we can be infected. Or when we touch the contaminated surface, so for example the doorknob, the telephone, okay, the pintu toilet. So that's why pintu toilet, telephone, pemegang pintu, those are the common places that have a lot of um, infectious disease agents. Okay, so that's why you have to take a lot of preventive measures. Use sanitizer, use wipes, wash your hands regularly. Okay, so these are how the diseases are spread in general. We know that already, and we know that specifically on how people will be infected. And we also have learned in the history of the influenza outbreak in 1918 to 1919, and we can see the resemblance, the similarities on how to handle those infectious disease, the prevention, the quarantine, and so forth. Yeah. So the long-term effects of the infection. So once we are infected, some virus or some bacterial disease, um, they will show us the symptoms, they will show us the effect of that infection in a long-term time. Okay, dia bukan yang short term. Okay, so for example, the bacteria and the viral infections, they can damage the heart tissue. Okay, ataupun viral infection, they can also cause the nerve damage. Tetapi whatever it is, in the long term run, any bacteria or any viral infection, they both can lead to death if it is untreated. Okay, so that's for this part on the epidemiology, and we have learned about what I have summarized just now. So this is the activity for this part, which is entitled the how COVID-19 is spread. So we have seen in 1918 to 1919 on how the influenza is spread. Yeah, it's through the returning of the troops of the World War I. Okay, so for this activity, students are required to make an infographic diagram on how COVID-19 is spread. Please do or upload your infographic in Google Jamboard. So that is the link, and I will post this link in Google Classroom as well, so don't worry about it. And you have 2 days to do it. So today is the 5th January of 2021, and you have 2 days to do it. So the deadline is this Thursday, 7 January 2021. I didn't put the timestamp because I bagi you sampai ke malam, as long as it is still 7 January 2021. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you very much.